Hello and welcome to the CDO magazine interview series. I am Denise Collison with SHI International, and we are partnering with CDO magazine, MIT, CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Kathryn Darnall Helms, who is the Chief Data Officer of the state of Oregon. Welcome, Kathryn.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you about data.
Me too. I'm very excited to get to know you. And to that end, I'm going to just jump right in because we don't have we don't have it all day, but there's so much I want to learn. But maybe you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself. I'm specifically interested to learn about your journey into leadership in the data field.
Yeah, happily. So I come from a somewhat unique background for a chief data officer, which is that I got into data through library and archives. So my primary work was originally with archives and preservation of archival records. I worked quite a bit with human rights archiving specifically. So engaging with countries and NGOs and nonprofits that were looking to preserve records of perhaps human rights abuses or specifically tumultuous times in a country's history or civil war, and leverage either their evidentiary value for things like human rights tribunals or peace and reconciliation work, or to actually leverage them as tools of memory, right? So engaging with them for preservation of testimony or survivor engagement or kind of repatriation into their home country and home history. And through that, I got really invested in the power and the transformational power specifically of government records and data and how they influence and give people either the ability to speak truth to power or engage more effectively with their government. And that really kicked me off into a long career within the public sector. So I've been a longstanding public sector person and employee and really dedicated to that work. And I joke that I've just moved earlier on in the life cycle, right? So I went from archives into records management and then more fully into data management and data governance. So I've previously worked for organizations like the City of Austin, helping to leverage their open data program and their data and information governance. But I've always been very focused on making sure that data and information are accessible and navigable for the public. It's one thing, of course, to make data available just by posting it online. But if you're not providing that proper context and metadata and meaning, it can be really difficult for people to make use of whatever our data is telling them. So making sure that we're portraying information in a variety of methods and contexts and really making sure that, what we in government are doing is transparent in a way that's understandable for our constituents.
That was awesome. One of the things that I have enjoyed so much about the interview series that I've been lucky enough to be part of is that everybody's journey to a CDO title is so different. Like the backgrounds that everyone comes with are super diverse, and that's exciting. That should be exciting to people out there listening that are interested in pursuing careers in data, that you don't have to have like one specific set of experience to take that journey. You can come from any background. It seems like it's the passion about the subject matter that actually drives the leadership success in that journey into leadership. So that's really cool that you had that, sort of different starting point. I love it. So on a more personal note, I would love to know if you're binge watching anything, and if so, what it is.
I mean, in terms of what I'm particularly interested in, and this isn't really necessarily a watching, but I love podcasts and specifically research podcasts. So one podcast I'm really interested in is called Maintenance Phase. And for data folks out there or data wonks, they do some really wonderful deep dives into methodology. They focus a lot on health and wellness, but specifically they do what they call kind of like methodology focused episodes. So they'll talk about how government interventions within NGOs or specific international development discussions around health and nutrition, how data has been tracked or measured and how outcomes have worked or not worked. So it's a really interesting, I think, additional lens that folks can bring into who are interested in data or specifically interested in how data intersects with pop culture. So you have this, we've read an article about this specific health and wellness intervention. Here's us unpacking kind of the nature of some of that work. So I think it's a great opportunity for people who are interested in that kind of like health and wellness.
That's a great recommendation. I was anticipating, like me, it was going to be a true crime podcast or something like that, but I guess I'm going to have to go check out this one now and get off my little guilty pleasure. Great, let's jump into it. So I know you've been in role since January 2019, but I did just want to say congratulations on being the inaugural CDO for the state of Oregon. That's really exciting, and what a great step in your career. Can you tell us a little bit about how you evolved in this role since 2019? So we heard a little bit about your journey to here. What's happened since you started in this role?
As the first chief data officer for Oregon, it really was a lot of building that foundation. So I think specifically there's, my growth edge as I related to the position. So coming from local government to state was a huge shift. The city of Austin has 15 to 18,000 employees, and our largest state agency has 20,000. So even just the change in scope and the diversity of lines of business, and we have agencies that are as small as 2 to 3 to 4 FTE. So this huge range of diversity and expertise in business context was definitely a growth edge for me. But overall, I think one of the places that we've been really successful in seeing a lot of growth is appropriately socializing that chief data officer role. And I think this is true for almost anyone who's the first CDO. You come in and people think, oh my gosh, data is everything, right? We create data all the time. We produce data. Data is, kind of like information technology, right? It's everywhere. So people start to feel a little bit concerned and bristly, right? Are you coming for my data? Does that mean you're going to take data from me? So appropriately socializing that, I'm here to help specifically. I'm here to provide that guidance and support. And as I built that network, that was really the first time the state saw enterprise leadership with regard to data and data strategy within the organization. So it's been a 3-year period of firsts, really. We built our first data strategy. We launched our first open data program. We've just unveiled our first statewide data governance policy. So building a lot of that foundational work has been critical over the last few years, and specifically in doing so collaboratively with state agencies. So as we look toward the future now, we're thinking a lot about maturing all of that goodness that we've cultivated and being able to expand, right? Build enterprise data governance from that data governance policy, focusing on data literacy and education, and making sure that there's also a lot of mentorship and support available. I will say I've been really lucky to receive a lot of mentorship. So I report to our state CIO, Terrence Woods, and he's been so great in helping me acclimate to that state culture specifically. And that has made a huge difference in terms of exposure to executive leadership, making sure that you're building those strong relationships. So I think like most CDOs, having that executive buy-in and leadership really makes a huge difference.
It sure does. I'm going to dig into something that you talked about, and that is the state of Oregon's first data strategy. So you mentioned it's been a series of firsts. I mean, really, I can't even imagine how many firsts you've had in this position. But what was the process? How did you even begin the process for building a state's first data strategy? And I'm going to go one step further. And what lessons did you guys learn that you can share out with another organization, whether it's on the same scale or even smaller, that are looking to build out their first data strategy?
Oregon took a really interesting approach, I think, to our building a state data strategy. So I first leveraged my Chief Data Officer Advisory Council. So one of the first actions I took when I came was find those allies, right? Find research directors that are very invested in data, find CIOs that are invested in the transformational power of data, and find those stakeholders that are really interested in helping build something collaborative and meaningful for the state at that enterprise level. So we decided to adopt a model that's very similar to the federal data strategy for those who are familiar with it. So we, rather than doing a more traditional gap analysis or focus on data governance with this is what we're going to do over the next 3 to 5 years, we built out some core principles for how we as a state want to manage data. So they're high level principles like, leveraging data as a strategic asset for the public good, making sure that we've built equity and inclusion into our core principles, encouraging sharing as a culture and community, and making sure that we're really focusing on building that data informed culture. And then we've set some high level kind of 10-year horizon practices. This is what we would like to see from a fully functioning, mature data enterprise in a decade. So we've created this very high level vision, and then we're producing what we're calling biennial action plans. So every 2 years, we refresh a component of the strategy and say, these are the critical actions that we've prioritized. We do, a lessons learned and kind of a post-mortem of here's what we attempted to undertake over the last 2 years. We're in the process just now of updating since we released in 21. So we're closing out 2023 over the next year and then releasing the new biennial action plan. And these have been a great way to condense our strategy, which is a little bit hefty and can be very difficult for folks to dig into unless they're really interested in kind of the meat of data. So these action plans instead provide that 1 to 2 page executive level summary, which is something that I highly recommend for folks as a lessons learned for data strategies, right? Making sure that if you're producing a particularly lengthy strategy, which I think makes sense because you're touching on governance and literacy and ethical use of data and leveraging AI and automated systems, but building that, shorter executive summary has been a really helpful toolkit for us. We also, at the public sector level, which I would recommend, built public comment periods and public engagement periods into our strategy. So we released drafts along the way and had time to receive and collect comments from the community. We also had community-based organizations do some reading and review of our data strategy. So really making sure that development was an inclusive process. And I think we're really seeing that in terms of buy-in to the data strategy, because then it feels less like I, the chief data officer, have issued this edict, right? Instead, it's here's something we as a community built collaboratively, and we're all invested in making successful.
I just am kind of a little bit in awe of just your holistic perspective that you're bringing to that role, and just all of the different facets of what it means to be a chief data officer and how you're bringing those all together at the state. It's really impressive.
I've been really lucky as well with strong partnership, and you're always welcome to come visit Oregon.
Yeah, I love it there. I love it there. So you don't have to ask me twice. I will let you know when I'm in town. For everyone out there, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.